Good food puts me in a good mood. And today, the chance of speaking to international celebrity chef Anand George has me very excited. He tells all about his restaurant Poppadom, the food outlet Takatak. This is all about his journey from Kochi to Cardiff. Without further ado, let's get started. Hello, chef. It's so great to have you here on the show with us today.
Thank you.
So please tell me about Purple Poppadom. I know we have to start there. It's such a fascinating name. And please tell me about the journey of how it began and how it's running today.
Purple Poppadom is a 10-year-old establishment. We opened in 2011. Before that, I was in Cardiff. I went to UK in 2005. Purple Poppadom was born in 2011. So 6 years of experience in UK and 3.5 experience in Cardiff. So I went to Cardiff in 2007 to open another restaurant called Mint and Mustard. That's where all started. But when business grow, when good things happen, people fall out. So that's what happened, and I fell apart with my old partners. And that's where I moved to and opened Purple Poppadom. And it's now 10 years. So we call it a progressive Indian. Initially, we used to call it the Nouvelle Indian cuisine. But I would say that it's progressive, modern food, but the taste and flavor. When I say modern, it doesn't mean that molecular gastronomy. It's nice food, done nicely, presented, and it has got a life, soul and a flavor to it.
So are there any items on the menu that are there throughout the year, or do you all keep switching up your menus? I'd love to know. And what is probably your favorite item on the menu?
We try to keep, there's a pattern of the menu which we keep it, we don't change at all. Like we got a dish called Tiffin Sea Bass. That was a dish I won in British Parliament in 2008. So House of Commons. So they run a competition called the Tiffin Cup, to find the best curry house. So that's where they call the Indian restaurant the Big Banner Curry House. Okay. But now things are changing. So the Indian restaurant does not like it to be called curry houses, because curry is a very vague term, but the kind of experience what we give is not just a curry. So it moved on. So it was a competition to find, the MPs nominate a restaurant from their side, and you go to find you cook in House of Commons. So that's where I went in, and I made a dish called Tiffin Sea Bass. That's where the name Tiffin. So sea bass is the dish, the name of the fish, and Tiffin is a competition. So what we did when I used to work in Taj Coromandel in Southern Spice, we used to have a dish called Jalapeno fish curry. So it's basically a fish curry with raw mango, coconut milk, chili powder, turmeric. No, it's a nice balance of flavors. Coconut milk and mangoes goes very well with a subtle spicing of chili powder. It's not the killer hot chili powder. So, and before that I worked in my first job in UK was a 1-star Michelin restaurant. So they used to do a modern interpretation of it. I worked there only for a few months, but the thought processes and the idea, that opened my eyes. So I looked into, you can do the Indian food this way without changing the main thing. And we just had started the restaurant in Cardiff. And then I had the free hand, because when you work in our trade, when you got a head chef, you have to listen to the head chef. It's a simple process, and that's the protocol we follow. So when I had opened the restaurant, then I had my luxury to try things and again for a competition. So I had to do one dish in the competition, and it's pretty difficult to impress a judge with one dish. So then I again thought about, okay, what is the procedure? How can you bring it a little bit of texture, flavor to as a dish? And if you look at the way the European food is anything done, they try to bring a 3-dimension of the food, the way it is presented and the way it is put together. So that's what the thought process started moving in, and I thought, okay, we got a beautiful fish curry, jalapeno fish curry, but it's again making a sauce and putting the fish into that. Okay, let's take the elements out of it. So the sauce is from the fish curry, you strain the sauce. So it's smooth, it has got a better finish. Then you need to have a carb. And where do you put the fish on? So the sauce goes on the plate, and then I make it a mash. So mash again, we got a nice potato mash which use in masala dosa. But that can be done a little bit more smooth, finer, so that you can shape it into a quenelle shape, and that sits on the sauce. Again, the sauce is flavorful, the mash is flavorful, then the fish. You don't have to put all the masala. So we just pan-sear the fish with a little bit of salt and a beetroot pachadi on the top and a fried curry. So if you look from an angle, it has got a three-dimensional way. But initially when I did in the competition, beetroot pachadi and all was not there. I did coconut chutney and that won the competition. And that was the change of our career. And they said, okay, you can do a fusion without confusion. But all the elements, different parts of Indian cuisine together as a balance. So that was the base we started creating, and that's where I would say that my approach to Indian food started, and that's what we do now. Like at the moment, we got a dish called pidi tara. So we do small dumplings, but again, the pidi is only 8 grams. It's small. It's not like a big. So we give 3 there, and we make a duck roast. So there we work with cuts of meat rather than whole duck. So I can buy the duck breast, I can buy the duck leg. So and again, a lot of techniques which you can learn. So in French, there's a technique called confit. So where they slowly cook the meat in a very low temperature in fat. So what we did is we made the duck roast with the duck breast and the duck legs we confit. So once you do the confit, you can literally pull the meat apart, right? So we pull the meat apart, and on the final serving time, we just put it in the oven. So the leg become crisp. So you got a smooth texture of the coconut dumpling. Duck roast gives a little bit of spice, and the crunchiness of the confit duck legs makes an experience. And it's a yummy, even if anyone comes in, it's easy to impress. And if someone comes from our part of Kerala, it's a nostalgia as well, but done in a different way. So that's what I would look at dishes. Okay, see, there are elements in how can you put it together. And there's a little bit of that eating experience rather than everything mixed on a spoon, and that's what I try to achieve.
So you were mentioning something about a town hall concept when we were talking a little earlier, and it was really nice that you mentioned, and I just want to know a little more about Takatak, which is a brand that you've started in itself. So please tell me about that and where one could find something of the sort.
Takatak we started in around 2015-16 when we ventured into the street food. Street food was peak time in Cardiff, and it's very new. The food is very trendy and you have to move with the time, and that's where the street food even started, and we started a brand called Takatak. Initially it was a mobile van, like a food trailer, food truck. We take it to festivals and events, and we did a couple of years with that. It's an experience to learn. It's not easy from a practical business perspective to go there, set it up, and you need to have a big team to run it. And again, the dishes and the people who work in festivals, you need to be really on the go, because you need to feed the masses in a very small interval of time with minimum resources. So in our truck, the way it was, we 3 of us work in a truck, and it has to be one person takes the money, one do the fryer. It is like a military operation, regiment operation, and initially it was fun. We did it, we enjoyed it, we learned. It's all about evolving and revolving. That's a good part I could learn in being in my Cardiff life. And we reinvented dishes like Kerala fried chicken and chips. Okay. That's still our biggest seller. Okay. So marinated chicken, fried chicken, but our spices. Okay. And we make a chips. And with the chips we dust with coconut, garlic and chili powder. Wow. So we try to match what goes as a dish. So if you look at
I'm sure that's very good with alcohol.
Alcohol, yeah. The beers, that's what we say. The festival is the beer.
Yeah.
and it's warm. And so normally the festivals happens from April when the spring starts to summer, and festival finish by September. So the problem is a very small window. But we did a couple of years, we built the brand. We built, like, our biggest sellers always was the Kerala fried chicken and chips, samosa chaat. So we always try to keep only three dishes or 5 dishes. That's a maximum, because that's what only you can do the best from the resources what you got, and you're far away from your main site, kitchen sites, and how much you can store, and how fast you can move across as well. And so that's where it started. Then the times change. the street food, that finesse, and that slowly started, and there were so many events happening. It was not financially viable. That's what I would say from an operator's point. And then the market stalls, and that kind of concept started coming up in London, where the new market trends, rather than just a farmer's market and thing, it was like permanent sites. So the old classic markets, where no one never used to go, it became trendy, and it was more affordable for independent like us. If I move to a hall or a new happening venue, the rents and rates are massive. We won't be able to sustain, and not sustain, we won't be able to pass it to the customer until I am a brand and I got that kind of corporate funding. Then these marketplaces was pretty affordable for us. So we ventured into Cardiff market. That's a 100-year-old, they call it the old jail. So it's beautifully done. A lot of local independence. So you got vendors selling vegetables. There's a fish market there. There are a couple of butchers. So it's got its own character. And upstairs, recently they have got an interest to convert it into more like a dining space where you got a communal seating. So we took one of the old pet shops. Still we get a lot of customers coming who has been the old timer. They say, where is the pet shop? So we say the pet shop is gone. This is what it is. So we took it as a Takatak, and that's one of our permanent sites there now.
Like you mentioned, there's a different aspect to running a restaurant or being in charge of operations. So can you tell me that what exactly is the difference that one could expect from being just a chef to becoming the operator of a restaurant? What is that like, and how easy is it to make that transition?
The chef's job is quite easier. You cook it, you run it, you make it easier. But from an operator's point, or from a restaurant, what we do now is we got all the recipes standardized. Everything is by the books. So you go everything by grams and liter. So that gives the first point of consistency. There's a little bit of element goes here and there from the heat application, like what temperature they're cooking on. That does not make much difference, but still I would say 80% you can achieve it, 20% is there. But from a customer point, it's not that, does not showable to the customer. So 80% is accuracy there. So everything we try to go by a batch recipe, and either you go this batch or a small batch. So that's where we do that. And again, train them. So even though we take chefs in, we need to train them. Because it's a Purple Poppadom operation is a 5-chef operation, and certain dishes have got elements from a couple of sections. So until and all these sections does not work together, one part of the food get cold. And sometimes when you deal with fish and all these cuts of meat, it become hardened as well. It can become rubbery. So that kind of workflow is something we need to teach the boys. And from how much prep we can do. So on a 70-seater restaurant, on a busy day, we can do up to 140 covers. So, and when we do 140 covers, there should be a substantial amount of prep to be done, to such extent that this, without compromising the quality.
So you're saying 140 with 5 people?
Yeah, 5 chefs.
5 chefs? Wow, okay.
Because labor is the most expensive thing in UK. But you can train them, and that's what we all do, and we run by example. So if I run the past like this is the way we expect you to do, and we keep them on the toes. Not the toes, we train them to get into that toes. It's not, if I get a boy in just today and he won't be able to do the second, we keep him outside, we show him, slowly train him, and then we'll get him inside. At least, even though he's got a good 10 years of experience, he'll struggle at least 1 month to understand our approach to food, how we bring together. And then we got another element of service as well. So it's easy just to bring the food to the past, but then the other part is from the past to the guests. So the waiters needs to know the menu. So we already recorded everything, saying that, okay, this is the dish, this is the allergens are. There are 14 allergens which is required by the law we have to display. And this we say these things are there, these things are there. And this is possible, this is not possible. So that we make it very clear, and it has been taught to the food pickup boys, the waiters, the managers. They know that. So when some customer comes in and asks them, they can easily deal with that. Because otherwise the operation strucks. So there are a lot of operation points we need to bring in. So from a chefing point, it's so easy. You cook the dish, but then the element happens from there, going to the customer and he having that experience. Sometimes a lot of customers order dishes because there are so many curry houses and things there. They call Rogan Josh. So it's a name of the dish. So, but we try to do what we have learned, or I think which is authentic. But for the customer who eat in another place, his perception of Rogan Josh is something else. So he say, "What is this?" So we try to train the service staff to say that, okay, this is the way we do, and this is what that. If you don't like it, let us know. Because at the end of the day, we have to retain the customer, and to a certain extent we do it. We don't try to change the menu, or you can order anything out of the box of the menu, because it's not possible. And we can't do it in that short interval when we got a busy. Until you give us sufficient notice and saying that, okay, these things we would like to have, and we will like to cater for that. Otherwise, it's pretty difficult from an operator. So we try to put everything into a system, from the ordering point to the product procurement, where the way it's stored, and then after cooking, what is the life cycle we have for it. So we work on a 3-day cycle because everything is batch cooked. So it's like when someone sits in the restaurant and order a Rogan Josh, we take at least 3-4 hours to make a Rogan Josh. So on a 15-20 minutes time from a starter to the main course, I won't be able to cook the lamb. So it's already cooked. So it's reheated. So once we cook it, we use a system of blast chilling. It's not blast freezing, blast chilling. So it has got a better, and it sits in the cold room. So everything is on a cycle, and everything has to be documented with the legislation we got. It's basically converted into a system. And system to be done by the staff and someone to monitor. That's what is the challenge. It's human tendency to find easy way outs. So some easy ways are good for the business from an operation point, but a lot of easy ways are not good for the product shelf life or the customer experience. So seeing what is practically possible and make the best interest of the customer and the business, that's what we try to build it as a system.
So I mean, what I feel like it's being a chef is like, playing the violin, but like running a restaurant is like, running the orchestra.
Same thing. So you got waiters and everyone, and the energy and the pace and the heat changes everything. So you need to sometimes you need to be cool, but I don't think that I am a cool chef. I would shout and yell, but sometimes that's where the operation works, and that. We call it the rhythm. Everyone runs, and there's very less talking, because if everyone starts talking, nothing will move. So there's one person talks, and we call it the barking chef. And one person barks, everyone listens. That's where the operations are.
So it was nice to find out that you actually didn't start from culinary school. You were educated in something else, and then you made the shift to culinary out of your interest in it. So I'd love to know about that starting off, and then probably how you ended up going to the UK, and how was that journey like? How easy was it to adjust to life there and start your career there?
I'm a commerce graduate, but like a normal Kerala thing, you need to be a graduate. So I did graduation. I had a couple of things to do along with that. I had a part of job. I used to play cricket. So that matched my college and my lifestyle of that time. But then again, what is the career to go for? Whether you go for a CA, chartered accountant, that's not something I didn't want to do, or an MBA. Food always I liked to eat. So then I thought, why don't I venture into a career? But that's not very common that time, being a commerce graduate or a graduate then go to a culinary school to be a chef. But that time it was a very vague term, we call it hotel management. So when you go to a school, you don't learn all the departments, 3-year course. since I ventured out, I moved to Jodhpur, I worked in a hotel, had a bit of experience of the industry before I went to the school. So then I figured out that I need to have a basic education in culinary if I want to become a chef. Then which are the schools in India to be done. So I understood there is a Taj school in Aurangabad run by the Taj group of hotels. They do a 2-year culinary program. So that was a pretty, which could match my profile and the time scale, because it was a 2-year program. So I prepared for the entrance, and they only take 14 students a year in a batch. So it was pretty competitive. So then I decided, okay, I'll sit down and study for the entrance. But by the time I got a part-time job, I was trying for a job, and I ended up in Hyatt Regency, Delhi. That was in another like 500 room hotel, 10 kitchens. So it was an experience. They had they had the Tapanaki there, the Italian restaurant. So it was an experience, something to look up. Okay, this is industry. Okay, this is where you go. And then Taj School was a very good experience. We were only a very small batch of 14 students. We had a hotel next to us. So the exposure was very, very high. And the faculty we had was pretty experienced in the industry, in the trade. And again, the training facilities. So as on the job training, we could decide any Taj to be trained. So I took Taj Palace, Delhi, one of the biggest banqueting. So the exposure was pretty good. To look up. Then again, everyone's dream is to go London, because that was a trend, I would say. So then again, but you can't just go just finishing the college. You need to have some kind of basic knowledge and experience. So I always wanted to specialize in India. So I thought, if I go abroad, what do I represent? Okay, I need to represent something, and it has got a value and something to stand upon. So I started, we have the direct posting from the college. I was posted in Taj President, but unlucky, I was given a Mexican kitchen, which I didn't want to do. So I left the job and I joined Savai Madhopur, Vanya Vilas. That was one of the Oberoi's new hotel. This was a jungle resort. So I spent a year there, and it's in Savai Madhopur. Rantanpur is one of the biggest tiger life sanctuary. And they got a beautiful hotel, 25 luxury tents. It's called Vanya Vilas. So I was the opening team for that. Very good experience. And Oberoi's, their work culture is pretty, the way they train, the way they motivate you. And on a beginner, it was, and I had a few experiences before. I trained in Hyatt, and I worked in few hotels as a part-time kind of thing to have a better understanding of cooking and things. So that enabled me to be a better candidate than anyone. So I spent a year there, but again the quest for, so I could explore Rajasthani cuisine, understand take a sabji, and what is real food rather than which has come from, because a lot of places you get North Indian food in South, it's not exactly the way they eat, and eating in all these local dhaba, and that kind of experience, I think you understand food. So that was a good experience I had there. Then I went back to work in Taj Coromandel, Southern Spice. So that was a restaurant which specialized food in Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra. So when you say South Indian food, it's not just idli, dosa, parota. That's what a lot of the time North Indian thought about it. But there is a lot of specialization. Even if you just take a Tamil cuisine, there are a lot of Kongu cuisine, Chettinad cuisine. There is a lot of derivations and byproducts of it. So again, 1 year there, it was again, so there was a good learning, because Taj Coromandel had a lot of experienced cooks. We can call them chefs as well. So it was a good learning from them, like balancing of sambar or rasam. It's a lot of technique. It's understanding the heat, how do you roast the spices, to what degree, what happens when the garlic is pounded or when the garlic is crushed, what are the intensity it gives to the dish. So all these things, a lot of the time these chefs get irritated when you ask these questions, but at that point I never understood what is what, but at least look at 10 years to understand. At this stage, when I look at creating dishes, I say, oh, this dish I used to see in Southern Spain, this is what we can recreate there. So 1 year at Southern Spice was very good. Then I moved to Leela, Bombay. So they were opening a restaurant called Jabawar. That was their modern Indian restaurant. And I was heading the South Indian kitchen. So again, we had a lot of experienced cooks and chefs there. So it was learning. So learning never stops, and that's what the good thing. 3 years, even though I worked only for 3 years, I worked in 3 different hotels, a lot of exposure, and you learn every day if you want to grow. So my aspiration was learn, move on. And down the line, 3 years, I'm out of India. Landed up in London. Everyone's dream place. But the place I landed it used to have a Michelin called Zyka. But I ended up in desserts. I'd never ever done desserts. So that sting didn't laugh. But that restaurant, the interpretation of the way they did the food, that restaurant used to be a chef called Vineet Bhatia. And I think he's one of the they laid foundation for us to make a life easy as a chef profession. So they laid the foundation to get the Indian cuisine from a curry house to where it is today. And I could see a lot of things which they were quite interesting. Something for me to understand. Okay, this is the way they present it, but you can put your thought process, my experience, what I've seen in Savai Madhapur to Chennai to Bombay in my context. So, but I stayed there for only 3 months. Then I moved to another one in Marbella, Chisholm, and that was a big operation. 350 cover restaurant, 22 chefs. That was a bulk, big operation. So I stayed there for 2.5 years till I moved to Cardiff to open a restaurant. So that's where the journey of India to London.
So how easy was it to make this transition from being a chef in India in different restaurants to being a chef in the UK and then starting your own operation in the UK?
So working in UK is pretty easy. The operations are tighter, staffing is pretty rigid, so you need to be really on the go. And you need to be multi-skilled. It's not like you'll have someone, you don't have a helper system or anything, you do everything yourself, and by the time you pick up yourself, otherwise you won't survive the trade. So that experience I got in, but it was a bigger operation. Then moving into business is something different, which I didn't have a clue as well. So it took me 2.5 years to brew myself to see what is exactly the format. But when you work in a big estate, a lot of times they don't share a lot of information. They don't share what are the food costs, so then you make assumptions what you do. And I had few investors who wanted to open. They said, okay, we'll invest, let's see. So it was a gamble. Even we ended up in Cardiff was a gamble because we never thought to be in Cardiff. We were looking at another place, but by touch wood or by luck, we ended up in Cardiff with a small 30-seater restaurant, which was halfway done. And we were given a false promise, but just 1 month is everything to go. But we did it, but we spent a lot of money than what we thought. And from there, I would say from 2007, that's where the real learning curve happens. How to deal with staff. It's not just cooking, it's a team together. Everyone is very important. Like if the boy in the dishwasher does not turn up, what will you do? So there's a lot of things you learn by, every day was a learning. Something or the other happens and you started solving the problems. And solving the problems took me to where I am today. So something happened this day, okay, next time we do that. And then slowly we start building a team, a loyalty among the customers, suppliers. It's a reputation you build. And that's what I slowly started. And if you're honest and if you're focused in what you do, and if you got a vision, slowly things will fall in. And that's what I would say my 15 years in Cardiff.
Okay, great. So do you have any advice for people who are probably trying to follow in your footsteps?
There is no shortcuts. And it's a dedication. I spend a lot of time in the trade, but you have to sacrifice a lot of things in your personal life as well. How much can you take that compromise? You can't have everything. So if someone wants to become a Michelin star, that dedication is totally different than what I did. If you want to become a Michelin star chef or you want to have a Michelin, the dedication, the detailing, the way, the focus, because I would say your 10 years is you're not nowhere seen in the map, because you spend most of the time, when I say most of the time, easily 15 to 18 hours in the kitchen. How much you can do that? If you want to excel yourself to be the world number one, or you want to say that my restaurant should be the top 100s in the world, everything is possible the way you see it. And how you take the journey, how you travel through it. without compromising. So the compromise, you have to make your decision saying that, okay, this is the compromise I'll do for this. But this is what I want to achieve. And it's a journey, you make it, and there'll be a lot of hurdles. That's what I always say. Find solutions. Otherwise, you can't move. You get stuck. And there are a lot of options as well. It's not like you won't survive. But to reach that is called the survival of the fittest. So you take the decision, you work for it, and you would reach it. That's what I say.
So in 2016, you published a book, The 5,000 Mile Journey, and you were telling me a little bit about your interest in food anthropology. So can you please elaborate a little more for our audience what this is about?
So the 5,000 Mile Journey comes from the experience of writing the book from the classes I do. So I do a master class. We call it the master class, where the clients come to my kitchen and we do an interactive session where they cook with us. And that's where we started creating recipes for people. So from a chef's point, it's easy. We know our batch cooking, our language of understanding. But how do you make someone create these dishes without that kind of chef's experience and kind of things in? And that's where we looked into ingredients. Okay, this is the format we do, and then we had a lot of feedbacks from the customers. Okay, this recipe worked, this was difficult. And then we thought, okay, why can't we do a book? And the 5,000 Mile Journey, the name comes from, I say that from Cochin to Cardiff is 5,000 miles. That's what I say. It's not 5,000, it's 4,000 something. So it's easy to call it the 5,000 Mile Journey, and that's what we say. So transition of me from Cochin to Cardiff. The people who influence me in the food, with good food. When I say good food, I never cooked at home. But I ate good meals at home with my mom, my aunt, my mom's sister, aunt, and that kind of experience is what I today relate upon a lot of dishes I create, and that's what the book was. And then we did. The first part talks about Cochin, then the second part is all the food styling, the recipes we do, and since it was a 1,000-copy production, we did it through the restaurant. We sold it only through the restaurant. It was a very kind of, we call it the special edition kind of thing, and we could buy it only through the restaurant. So we used it as a marketing exercise for the restaurant, and we sold out the book in 2 years' time. So that experience, when I came to Cochin, I had a lot of conversation with people who talks about history, the culture, how did the colonization help us, the Portuguese influence, all these things shaped the food culture in Cochin. And that's where I lived for 21 years. And a lot of the dishes when I ate 24 years before, that was, I'm talking about 98 when I left Cochin, it's not visible now. And that kind of food culture is also moving away. And for that time, I would say the food was more like a well-being. And there was junk food, I think, but not too much. So food was more like a medicine. So you eat certain food at certain times of the year to build your antibodies and keep yourself out of all this diseases and things. And things have been moving. And these recipes and the people who can cook that kind of dishes, that balance, is nowhere documented. Like if an injipuli is a very good dish for the sadhya. So if you look at the amount of dishes, there are 18. There are few things added into it, like kumblaga or the ash god. It's more like a cleanser. So there were a lot of food ingredients added into the dishes, like turmeric, which had some values to it. It's not just throwing in an element or a dish or a product in, because that added some values either to the digestive system or the cleansing part. So that was a food cycle we had. Even though everything was not refined, so that gives a good flush out. So all these things worked, and it started dying away. And since it's not documented anywhere, how do you talk about this, or how do you understand to the next generation, pass it on to the next generation? And that's where this interest comes in about food anthropology. Even Cochin, Mattancheri, if you look at in a small 5-kilometer radius, so many communities, everyone lived under one banner, and the cuisine evolved. Like there is one dish called savloja, which you find in the morning. Where does it evolve? No one knows. So but these all evolved because of the social climate of that time. Because that is something I would say, a bread dough which was loosened, it's a savory donut. But if you have one with a tea, your stomach is full. So that economic condition of that time evolved these kind of dishes to make them comfortable for the masses. Like the luxury biryanis have been converted in something called an erachi choru. So erachi choru is like a normal rice where you're not paying a price for the basmati rice, and it has got that kind of rice there, but it's not. So there are a lot of crafters here who converted to the local inhabitants, even the lifestyle. So that's what they did, and that's quite fascinating. And there are a lot of kuch recipes. It's not people don't even make it at home. So it's going back to that roots and finding that recipes and bringing it up and documenting it as a book is something I would like to do.
Okay, so there's surely a book coming. When can we expect that?
This is a year's project. I would say 4-5 years. Because it's not just collecting recipes. And it's again someone shows you. And the problem is, how do you decide this is an accurate? So there is no accuracy, which I can't say that this is an exact recipe for a vindaloo, or this is an exact recipe. So I can just give my kind of thing. This is what I think. But certain recipes you need to go at least with 4-5 people in to understand what is, because one or two things they would have omitted, or they would not have known, the other person should not have told them. So there are a lot of things which carry. So you need to give it a little bit more time to do it, and learning from these people is not easy, and they're not easily accessible.
It's not easily accessible, may not be open to even.
And again, that conversation, they need to be comfortable talking to you. But by the time you talk and make that relationship, they'll tell you a lot of things, and they'll say, oh, this thing I forgot. Oh, this my mother used to do this way. Then I thought this is too much. I crafted my way. So for their lifestyle, because no one wants to spend 3 hours grinding and things there. But I'm interested in more like understanding the science of that thing and document. Then you use this as a reference. I'm not saying that this is a Bible. So this is a referencing. If you want, this is the long way to reach there, or you use the shortcut. But at least you understand this is what was there. These are the ingredients, and that's what I would like to do.